About 6 months ago, I was struggling with a lot of problems. My coworkers weren't exactly treating me the way I felt they should be. My girlfriend wasn't really there for me, and I suspected she was cheating. I was gone most of the day, and then she would go out at night right before I needed to go to bed, saying she just wanted to see some friends. She'd come home right as dawn was breaking, and then sleep sometimes until I got home from work. Not to mention, despite having a pretty good job, we were perpetually broke. My dad was always on my case about promoting. My friends were always on my case about me being 30 and still living like a 20-year-old. And I just didn't feel very supported. Except for one friend. My friend L. L knew what I was going through because he'd been going through it for years himself. He'd been hip deep in depression last year, but he said he knew just who could get me through it. He pulled a business card out of his pocket and slid it across the table to me, his smile a little too inviting as he begged me to flip it over. I expected to find the number of an escort agency or even a suicide prevention hotline, but it was a business card for a therapist, Dr. Bailey of the Bailey Therapy Group. "He's the best," Elle said. "He just makes all your problems go away." I thought about it for a while and finally decided, what harm could it do? The business card said the first 30 minutes were free, so if I wasn't satisfied, then all I'd lost was half an hour. I called to make sure it was real. Elle did sometimes like to play games, and when the receptionist said that they had an opening on Thursday, I decided to give it a try. His office was modest, the kind of place that probably used to be a dry cleaner, and I came in to find him adjusting couch cushions as he smiled and told me to have a seat. Dr. Bailey was an odd guy. I don't mean like he was eccentric or anything, but most therapists you see in movies wear button-down shirts and slacks. They have ponytails and thick glasses. They wear sensible shoes, and to tell you most of your problems are connected with your parents. Dr. Bailey looks like he might have been a student of Weird Al Yankovic. He wore a colorful shirt in an eye-watering style, a pair of ripped blue jeans, and shoes that looked like they might have started out life in a clown car. He had a thick set of mutton chops, a white guy afro, and reading glasses that he constantly kept on the bridge of his nose. The guy couldn't have hidden in a Jackson Pollock painting, but something about his smile put me at ease as he asked me what he could help me with. "I don't know," I told him honestly. I guess there's a lot of depression at play. Maybe I feel a little worthless, and people think what I need is to come and talk to someone like you." Dr. Bailey told me to sit down, and that was a fine place to start. "Why don't you start by telling me what brings you to this feeling of worthlessness? What really fuels the idea that you have no worth?" "I guess it all starts with my job, Doc," I said, taking a seat on the couch and getting comfortable. "That's a good place. What do you do for work?" I work in an IT department at a big logistics company. My coworkers think that I'm just some computer pusher, some guy that plugs in computers and unplugs the internet. I don't think any of them realize what I actually do for the company. One of them in particular has really started busting my balls about server speeds and download times. Does this coworker have a name? I paused, feeling a little weird about just divulging someone's name to someone I just met, but Dr. Bailey was a therapist, and that was part of the job, right? "Rich," I answered. "Richard Emanuel, the king of the third floor, because he handles all the top clients. His uncle founded the company, and it seems to be mostly run on nepotism these days. Rich has about 5 guys under him that basically just clean up his messes all day. When it comes time for reviews, however, Rich is always the one to get the pats on the back. He's the one who takes credit for everybody else's work, including mine sometimes." I ended up talking about Rich for most of the first hour, and when I was done, Dr. Bailey asked if I felt any better. I found that I actually did. It made me feel a lot better to talk about it, and I thanked him and agreed to set up another session. Walking out of that office made me feel light, made me feel good, and I found myself looking forward to the next session in 2 weeks. That good feeling persisted into the next day. When I arrived to find people talking in hushed voices, I was curious to see what was going on. It seemed that Rich hadn't showed up this morning, which wasn't odd, but he had a big presentation that they had needed him to get out in front of. No one was quite sure where he was. They had called his house. They had gone to the country club where he sometimes played golf early in the morning. They had gone to any number of women's houses who he had claimed to be intimate with, but no one could find him. His uncle was getting a little worried, but tried to smooth it over by saying this wasn't uncommon for Rich. "He'll turn up in a few days," Mr. Morgan said, but I could tell from looking at him that he probably didn't believe what he was saying. When I went to my next appointment with Dr. Bailey, Rich still hadn't turned up. I know some people at the office were worried about him, but I had honestly had the best 2 weeks of my life. Rich had been really writing me about download speeds on the server. God only knew why. And it was nice not to have him in my office every hour or so to ask if I had done something about it. Rich was another one who liked to bypass the firewall as well, so not having to clean up daily after him was kind of a plus. I suppose I was a little bit worried about him, but not enough to go out pounding the pavement looking for him. Dr. Bailey must have noticed because he mentioned that I looked happier. Well, it's the strangest thing. Do you remember the guy I told you about last week? The one who was bothering you at work? Rich. Yeah, he just sort of stopped coming to work. Nobody has seen him, and he simply hasn't shown up for 2 weeks. I don't want to say I'm glad he's gone, but it's been a lot nicer without him. I see. And how has that helped your mental state? I lay there for a minute, thinking about how to answer. Being rid of Rich was nice, but it wasn't the only thing on my mind. Now that work was back on track, I had more time to focus on problems at home. My girlfriend, we'll call her Kay, had really been on it lately. It was always about money with her, and it seemed like I never made enough of it. Kay wanted me to propose to her. She made that pretty clear, but she doesn't want any old ring, and certainly nothing I could afford. She wants something gaudy and expensive, and it's just a little bit out of my price range these days. I conveyed this to Dr. Bailey, and he nodded and scribbled on a pad of paper before asking me questions about our relationship. How long had we been seeing each other, what Kay did for work, what she brought to the household, and whether or not she was helping me with my mental journey. It was pretty eye-opening, really made me think about the relationship a little different. And when he told me my hour was up, I was feeling like I might have some strategies to help fix what was wrong. It was probably not going to happen. I was too much of a coward to enact any of it, but it was nice to have them nonetheless. I got a text from Kay as I was leaving the therapist office, telling me that she was working late and was probably going to miss dinner. I decided to do a little something for myself and got takeout instead. I got some of that really good Chinese food from the place I like near my house, put my favorite show on Netflix, which Kay usually doesn't want to watch, and had a nice night just sitting on the couch, eating and watching something that made me happy. I fell asleep right there on the sofa with a little bit of beef and broccoli in the corner of my mouth, and it was a wonder I didn't choke to death in my sleep. When I woke up the next morning to find that Kay still wasn't home, I looked around the apartment for signs of her. Her keys and her purse were missing, though. I got a little freaked out and started calling her friends, her parents, anyone to see if she had crashed with one of them last night. Sometimes, when she works late, she crashes with different people, and these frantic mornings of trying to seek her out really aren't that uncommon. No one had seen her, though. I even called her work, and they said as far as they knew, she had gone home last night, and her car wasn't even in the lot. I called the police after that, not really having a lot of options. And then I settled in to see if I could figure anything out. In the end, I just got dressed and went to work, same as I did every day. 2 weeks later, as I went to my next appointment with Dr. Bailey, there was still no sign of Kay, and some of the pep was definitely out of my step. "Certainly don't seem as happy as you did last time," Dr. Bailey said, as I sat down on the couch. "No, something happened to my girlfriend. The one I had been talking about last session is what I didn't say. It was something that I hadn't really thought about, but there was still no sign of Rich, and now Kay had gone missing. They hadn't known each other, so I couldn't exactly call it a coincidence, but the coincidence here was that I'd told Dr. Bailey about them. I shook it off, though. I was just being paranoid. This whole thing with Kay had my head spinning, and I just needed some grounding, and good old Dr. Bailey was going to get me through it, hopefully." "Well, if you don't mind me saying so, it sounds like some of the stressful things in your life are starting to migrate elsewhere. Maybe that's for the best. You had said that these people were a large part of your mental health struggles, so maybe they shouldn't be there. Have you felt stressed by your girlfriend's actions in the last 2 weeks?" Started to get a little angry, but he wasn't wrong. Actually, things have been a little less hectic around the house. Kay's parents came and got most of her stuff, and I haven't had to fight with her about chores or bills or anything lately. No one has hit me up for money in almost 2 weeks, and I haven't had to clean up a mess in the bathroom after she got ready for girls' night either. I've been sleeping a lot better without her constantly tossing and turning all night, too. It sounds terrible, I know, but yeah, I guess things have been a little better." "Good, good," Dr. Bailey said. "It sounds like we're making some real progress here. Let's move on to other outlying stressors. Is there anything else in your life that brings you stress?" I was gonna say that there really wasn't a lot of stress left in my life, but then I remembered the conversation I'd had this morning with my dad. My dad had called me at 6 a.m., like he so often does, and had been flabbergasted at the idea that I was still asleep. Dad's been retired for about 5 years, and in that 5 years, he had forgotten that people work, that offices keep business hours, and that people like to stay up past 8 o'clock at night and sleep past 5 in the morning. It was a conversation that we'd had many times, but this time, Dad decided to get a little personal, and I really didn't appreciate it. "No wonder your girlfriend left you. You sleep all day, and then you go to work and play with computers. Who wants a man like that?" The worst part was that I couldn't even deny it. I just said, and mumbled my way through my conversation with him until he got tired and hung up. I loved my dad, but he was certainly a big stressor in my life, and I told Dr. Bailey so. He thinks he knows everything. He doesn't speak to anyone. He just talks at them. He doesn't want a conversation. He just wants someone to tell him he's right. It's maddening. I don't know why he calls me every day just to yap at me, like some little dog that sits at the door and barks. Oh, but God forbid you don't pick up the phone, because then he's going to leave you a passive-aggressive voicemail telling you how he doesn't have many more years left and you should talk to him while you can. Maybe I would want to talk to him if he actually took an interest in anything I have an interest in. I know he doesn't like that I work in IT, but I'm paying my bills. I don't ask him for money like my brother does all the time. I think I'm doing pretty well, and I wish he could see that. Dr. Bailey said little beyond making agreeable noises and scratching things on a notepad. It honestly felt great to talk to somebody about my dad. It was something I'd tried not to think about for the longest time, and finally letting go and telling someone how I felt about it gave me a confidence boost like nothing I'd ever seen. I made a mental note to call my dad and tell him exactly how I felt. I thanked Dr. Bailey for his help and made an appointment for another session in 2 weeks. I was feeling on top of the world, really putting in the work, and I decided to call Dad and hash it out with him before I lost my nerve. But when I called my parents' house, my mom told me that Dad wasn't around. He and your uncle went to the lake for their monthly fishing trip. You know how they are about that. It's the only thing he sets a clock by anymore. I doubt you'll get him out there. The reception's terrible, but if it's important, you can tell me and I'll pass it along to him. I told Mom I'd just talk to him when he came back into town and to tell him to call me. She said that she would, and we said our goodbyes. I felt a little bad. I'd really wanted to talk to Dad before I thought better of it, but I knew he'd be back by Sunday, so I could talk to him then. Sunday night, Mom called me again, and she said she was worried about my dad and Uncle Rick. He's always back before dinner time on Sunday. I'm getting really worried. He's never stayed out this late on one of these fishing trips. I told her they probably just had some car trouble and they couldn't get a hold of anybody because they were out in the woods. I told her that if he wasn't back by morning time, I'd call out of work and go out to the little fishing shack they had out there and check on him myself. That seemed to make her feel a little better, and she thanked me before hanging up. Well, the next morning, he still wasn't back, so I called work and told him I was taking a personal day so that I could go check on something. I drove out to the fishing camp, which was what we had called it ever since I was little, but there was no sign of Dad or Uncle Rick. I couldn't believe that they would drive home and not tell Mom, but as I drove back up and down the road looking for sign of them, I began to think a little harder about the events of the past month and a half. I told Dr. Bailey about Rich, and then he went missing. Told Dr. Bailey about Kay, and then suddenly she went missing. Told Dr. Bailey about Dad, and then suddenly he was gone. These were things I should have been putting together all along, but it felt nice to have that kind of confidence, the kind of confidence I had after sessions, and I suppose I overlooked it. I was someone who wasn't used to having confidence, so I guess maybe that made it easier to look past. It's a piss-poor excuse, but it's mine, and I'll hang on to it, thanks. I didn't really think my therapist had anything to do with their disappearances anyway. Dr. Bailey was a little guy, not particularly intimidating, and it would have taken a lot of effort to disappear 3 fully grown people. The longer I drove up and down that stretch of road between my parents' house and the fishing shack, looking for signs that they'd had an accident, the less sure of that fact I became. Instead of calling Dr. Bailey, though, I called L, the one who had started all of this, and asked him to meet me at my apartment. He'd been Dr. Bailey's patient for longer than I had, so maybe he could put my mind at ease. Maybe he could tell me something that would help me put this in perspective and not feel so damn crazy. He said he'd come over that afternoon, and when he did, he looked at me with something like foreboding. Foreboding, but also pity. I've got to ask, how has Dr. Bailey helped you? He sat down on my couch like he'd been expecting this. He's helped me with my depression, self-confidence, and given me some perspective on people in my life. What kind of perspective? I asked hesitantly. He's helped me see that I'm better off without some of these people, and he's helped me cut them loose so that my mental health can improve without them. Did you cut them loose? Or did Dr. Bailey? He turned his head to look at me, giving me that same creepy smile as before. Is that what happened to Kay? I nodded. Yeah, I think he had something to do with it, but I'm not sure how Dr. Bailey is doing this. He's kind of a dweeb. The idea of him getting rid of 3 people is laughable. Laughable, but not very funny. He's only gotten rid of 2 people for me, but the guy who told me about Dr. Bailey said he had gotten rid of nearly a dozen for him when we had a similar conversation. I felt my anger rising. So you knew that would happen? I did. I also knew that someone was giving you trouble at work. I also knew that Kay was bleeding you dry and stringing you along. I assumed that they were the main culprits who were hurting your mental health, and I figured Dr. Bailey would do some good. I sighed as I sat down on the couch beside him. It would have been fine if he stopped with that, but he's got my dad too, and maybe my Uncle Rick. I didn't intend for any of this to happen. I didn't want to hurt people. I just wanted to feel better. He patted my shoulder. That's what he does. He makes people feel better. He got a guy at my work who was bullying me. Real high school shit. And then he made him go away. I felt like a brand new man. I hadn't intended to tell him about my sister, the one who's in grad school, been there for like 8 years now and refuses to do anything with it, but it just came spilling out. I talked about how she was the golden child, how she got everything she wanted, and how she had taken my college fund when my parents thought she needed it more. I was so mad at her, and when she disappeared, I really felt it for the first time. I didn't feel that wave of confidence or those good feelings that I had when my bully had been taken away. I was distraught. My parents were upset because their child was gone, but that was when I realized what I had done. I asked Dr. Bailey if he had made my sister disappear, and all he did was smile. He smiled for nearly 20 minutes, and then he asked if I wanted to schedule another session. I did. Despite how I felt about him, I did. I've been continuing to go for the last 1.5 years, but I'm very careful about who I talk about. It makes me look at my relationships a lot differently. It makes me interact with people a lot differently. It'll affect you too, whether you continue to go to him or not. I've been sitting on my couch ever since he left and staring at the appointment card in my hand. Dr. Bailey has really helped me improve. He's made me a whole new man, but I'm not sure I can get past the knowledge of what he's done. Here's the other part, the part that really scares me. I called my insurance company to make sure there weren't any weird charges that might point to him charging me for body disposal or making people go away. I don't know what I was expecting, but my insurance seemed surprised that I was asking about therapy. They had never been billed by a therapist. They had never been billed by anyone named Dr. Bailey. And I'd just been going for free therapy for the last 1.5 months. I don't know if I should go back or not, but my friend was right about one thing. Knowing that Dr. Bailey could disappear anyone for the slightest reason makes me really question my friendships. Words have power, something we all know, but we take that for granted sometimes. Be careful what you talk about when you're lying on the couch. You never know when you'll find a Dr. Bailey of your own. Good evening, everyone. It's me, Dr. Plague. Thank you so much for joining us for tonight's show. If you think you might like a little more spooky in your life, then please feel free to click on one of the videos we have up here. Maybe look at one of the playlists if you're trying to get caught up. I know, there's so many videos on the channel. There's so many series that are going at the same time. Sometimes you just need a little refresher course, and I gotta say, I always enjoy the views. If you're not subscribed, feel free to hit that subscribe button. Maybe hit the bell so you don't miss anything. We upload a lot on this channel, so you won't want to miss a single story as they come out. If you'd like to support the channel, you can click on the Amazon link down there. There's quite a few books in my Amazon account. You can have a look, and If you'd like a signed copy, get up with me through email, and I'll be happy to work something out with you. Also, there's links to my Patreon, and you can become a member on the channel if you'd like your spooky a little bit early. Patrons and members on the $5 tier get their videos 12 hours early. That's in the morning, as opposed to in the evening. Patrons at the $10 level also get a signed copy of my book anytime I write one. Speaking of my patrons, you should see them appearing right now. Just wanted to take a minute to say how much I appreciate all of you. Patrons, subscribers, however you give to the channel. I really appreciate everything you do, and it truly touches me that you have chosen to support the channel in this way. Well, that's enough for now. Till next time, Dr. Plague, signing off. Have a wonderful evening.